that with that one? This yeah, say the land that too much. It needs to be a little higher than I keep our house zip line. But it's gotta be this.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone here this evening. We're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so would you please join me? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first item then is the approval of the agenda. Is there any thinking on that?
I make a motion we approve the agenda.
Second.
Made and second, all in favor? Motion carries. Public comment? No one? All right, we have the consent agenda.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second, all in favor? And the motion carries. Okay, old business, finance, nonprofit funding appropriation.
Okay, last month, when the discussion of nonprofits was brought up, there was a question about the Shepherd's Care Medical Clinic and whether or not they accepted Medicaid. Got some clarification on it, as you'll see in the staff report. Cornerstone, the group they partnered with for the mental health services, they're the ones that accept Medicaid patients. Nothing's changed, I'm told, as far as the health and medical care. It's still a free clinic. So does that answer the question?
You have any questions? All right, thank you, Bob. What's the pleasure of the board? All right. Curtis has vocal problems, so he told me that he makes a motion to approve $1,000 to Shepherd's Care.
I'll second that.
Other comments or discussion? All in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you. Proclamation for Firefighters Week. Somebody gonna read that? You're gonna?
Mayor, Board of Commissioners, I come to you tonight realizing that the older I get, the more I appreciate how time flies and time goes past. Almost 30 years ago, I joined the fire department in Zebulon. In December of this year, I'll have 30 years of service. I see Mr. Curtis shaking the head. Time flies, I guess, when you're having fun, but I used to think 30 years was a long time. But nevertheless, in my 30 years with the department, coming up on it, when I joined, we ran about 167 calls a year. This year, we missed just by a few, running 1,600 calls in a year. So quite a difference in what 30 years makes. When I joined, we pretty much, we had one purpose, and that was putting out a fire when something caught on fire. Today, 70% of the calls we run are assist people with EMS through providing advanced cardiac care, drug administration, or whatever the situation calls, and we're allowed through our protocols. We've made life safety education a priority, where before we kind of is reactive. Now it's more proactive in trying to stop fires before they start, and child safety, seat education, and the like. Today we've gone into a situation where you don't know who to call, you got something going on, then most likely the fire department is who gets sent to help you. So it's this dedication. As much as has changed over that 30-year period, one thing has not changed, and that's the dedication of the people who serve. The dedication from our employees to the volunteers. Our volunteers respond from their homes, from their businesses. Our employees very devoted to the job they have taken on. Looking at a poll just today, and it depends, a lot of different polls out there, but when you look at them, the position of a firefighter is one of the most trusted professions that there are in the world, and we're very proud of that, and it's something we take very, very seriously. Well, to that end, back in May of 2011, the North Carolina General Assembly adopted a resolution that said the week containing September 11th be known as Firefighters Week in North Carolina, and it was intended to provide, to honor firefighters for their invaluable service provided to the state, its citizens, and communities. So what we have for you tonight is for your consideration is a proclamation which does proclaim September 11th through 17th, 2016 as Firefighters Week in Zebulon.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I'm going to read that proclamation and ask the board to adopt. It says, Proclamation Firefighters Week, September the 11th through September the 17th, 2016. Whereas fighting fires is one of the most hazardous professions requiring physical strength, stamina, extensive training, courage, and selfless concern for the welfare of others. Whereas firefighters provide valuable services to the citizens of Zebulon and surrounding areas. And whereas firefighters make sacrifices to protect the lives and financial interests of the citizens of Zebulon. And whereas firefighters respond to emergencies without hesitation when the call of duty arises. And whereas firefighters have a great appreciation for protecting their communities. And whereas our firefighters are a combination of both paid and volunteer professionals who are dedicated to the service of this community. And whereas the North Carolina General Assembly resolved that the week containing September the 11th is Firefighters Week in North Carolina each year. Now therefore, we, the Board of Commissioners of the town of Zebulon, do hereby proclaim September 11th through September 17th, 2016 as Firefighters Week, and call upon all citizens to recognize the duties and services that firefighters perform, and is proposed to be adopted this 6th day of September 2016. So I'll ask for a motion.
I make such a motion.
And second?
Motion's made and second. Other comments or discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. And thank you, sir, and thank all of our firefighters. We appreciate what you do. Thank you very much. Okay, extension of fire contract with Johnston County.
You may recall, back in April 2014, we entered into a contract agreement with Johnston County to provide services to a small portion, some of which is off of NC 96, Rice Road area, which is this dead-end road as soon as you enter into Johnston County. The remainder of it is a subdivision, which you actually enter off of Perry Curtis Road. But both of those areas being in Johnston County, the county, we entered into a contract with them to protect that area. I provided just a few statistics in the staff report, but in last fiscal year, we did respond to 11 incidents into that area, and the revenue received from them was just over $6,500. What Johnston County has asked us to do is extend that contract until June 2017, and that will put us in line with all of their other contracts in which they'll put on a regular rotation for renewal and that type of thing. There is one additional provision that states that we run our employees through E-Verify, which is something the town was already doing anyway, but they've added that additional stipulation.
Okay, questions? Okay, is there a motion to extend the contract?
I make a motion that we extend the contract.
I'll second that.
Made and second. Other comments or discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. All right, finance software purchase contract.
If you recall, as part of the budget this year, there was in there for the purchase of some new finance software. You'll see in the background section of the staff report all the modules used: general ledger, payroll, accounts payable, etc. All the stuff we have now. We went in along with Wendell back this winter, started to look around and see what else is out there. We are both currently with Logix, have been for a long time. Excuse me, a long time. So we partnered up on this and had some demos, had some companies come in, They came here, we went to Wendell, et cetera. We kind of decided the best fit for the both of us would be Edmonds and Associates. That's the contract you see in your packet there. Going in together with them, we were also able to get a 20% discount because there's some cost savings there. We're going to be doing it at the same time, things like that, to get them some savings. And the two that it was really down to were Edmonds and Harris Computer Corporation, called CSI. So you'll see the contract in there for your approval, if you so choose. I'll take any questions anybody might have.
Now, this 48 is the joint amount or just our part?
That's our part.
Our part.
Yeah. That's including everything, all the licenses, training, conversion. We'd like to convert 7 years. They would do 7. In their base price was 3 years. For additional fee, fairly minimal fee, they'll do 7. So that includes 7 years of history conversion. The first year, there is not any maintenance charges at all. And then after that, it's about $8,700 annually. As opposed to what we're paying now is about 12,000 plus. So there'll be some savings there in the future.
Are these two independent contracts, or is it one contract that we're splitting with Wendell?
They're independent contracts.
Okay. Just reviewed it and looked at it together. Got a discount.
Yeah, right.
Can you give us the reasons why the need for change?
Well, as I said, we've been with them longer than I've been here. It just seems the customer service has fallen off. Some of the modules in there don't really work like they're supposed to. They're inoperable, basically. And we had to have our auditors basically use their fixed asset software the last 2 years. They don't have anybody there the past 2 years that could use the current, what they had, could make it work. That various reasons, customer service, support, but just the products itself, they're not as user-friendly as they used to be. They changed, with the times, they didn't really keep up, I guess you could say.
Bobby, how long has, or if you know, how long has Edmonds and Associates been in business?
I think it was about 40 years, 40, 50 years, I believe. It's a family business. It started, and they have multiple clients in North Carolina, all up and down the East Coast.
Other questions? Okay, what's your pleasure?
And I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with Edmonds and Associates, $48,875.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and second. Other comments or discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, Industrial Drive Traffic Control.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. What I'm bringing to you tonight is a situation that we've had for a while at Industrial Drive, and I think everybody in this room is familiar with the traffic problems that we've had for some years now at Industrial Drive, basically where the intersection for the industrial park and the East Wake Academy, all the traffic kind of comes there together, and we've had a traffic problem there for some time. A few years ago, we were contacted by some of the businesses out there that asked us to help them come to a solution. So I've written you a staff report that kind of details what we've been through over the last several years, the process as we've kind of moved through this. But I'll kind of boil it down tonight to 6 points. The first one being that the problem. The problem is that East Wake Academy and all the other businesses, namely Nameco and Nomercorp, but there's also some other businesses, Cam Tool and Die, for example, they share basically one road, one 2-lane driveway, which is Industrial Drive. And at times when the school is coming into session, around 8 o'clock in the morning, and then again around 3:15 in the afternoon when school is getting out, you have several hundred parent drivers, and also student drivers leaving the school at the same time that the shift change is going on at Nemeko. So we get a huge number of cars on that road, and it's just simply capacity. The road can't handle that much traffic, and so we get huge backups that come out onto Gannon Avenue and so forth. So the second point is we have looked at long-range solutions, and I've met several times, the mayor's met several times, our town manager Joe Moore has met several times with members of Nemeko and other businesses out there and the school, and there are several long-range solutions that are being considered. Of course, there is, to every long-range possible solution, there's things you have to go around: money, finances, acquisition of land, and so on and so forth. So what we did, I included a memo about a year ago. We came up, a little over a year ago, we came up with a temporary solution, and that temporary short-term, short-range solution was to provide an on-duty police officer to assist with the flow of traffic. That on-duty police officer goes up there and helps get traffic out of the parking lots and out of Industrial Drive, and then again out onto Gannon. Many times, however, I have one officer up there, but the traffic can get to be so crowded and so backed up that we have to send another officer over there. So we can end up with 2 officers working that point at the same time. Now, when we have a good time on the road, we may have 4 officers on the road, with 3 patrol officers and a canine officer. But as you all know, if I'm tied up, if I have an officer in Raleigh with a prisoner, at the hospital with an accident victim or anything like that, we could very shortly run into a shortage of police officers. And so we've made the businesses out there aware of that we're having an officer there, an on-duty officer, but there could come a time where that on-duty officer may have to leave. And so therefore, this is a short-range solution. The fourth point is that this problem, traffic problem, has increased this year with the closing of Nemeco's, or Nomacork's plant in Tarboro. When that plant closed, then it put about 30 additional trucks at the Zebulon plant. And I think that actually is Nemeco, their plant. So with 30 extra trucks coming into that parking area, still using the one driveway, Industrial Drive, it again simply is just putting more pressure on that road, increasing the problem we have with capacity there. So that's the fourth point. The fifth point is that going back to those long-range solutions, they're still being considered. And I mentioned some of those in the staff report. We're looking at the possibility of another road being built, and we've looked at lanes being added to Industrial Drive, lanes being added to Gannon, traffic lights, and all of those things are being looked at, but none of them are at the point where they could come to a fruition immediately. So that comes to this memo, and this meeting today is my sixth point, is that we came up with a proposal for a mid-range solution, and that mid-range solution is to hire an off-duty police officer to work the traffic at this location. We have talked with the business, the Nemeko, the business people from there. We've also talked to the staff at East Wake Academy, and they are both willing to chip in and pay a third of the cost of an off-duty police officer. What we're asking the town to do is the town to partner with these 2 local businesses and chip in 1/3, and that way we can put an off-duty police officer out there. Then that on-duty or that off-duty officer may have to be supplemented at times with an on-duty officer. It's simply how traffic or how the situation works out. But what I can do with an off-duty officer, I can guarantee that we have at least one officer on site to help empty that traffic. It's a traffic problem. It's an inconvenience for people at the school, people in the business, people that are driving on Gannon Avenue. It's also a hazard. We have approximately 400 student drivers using that road. And when you have student drivers using the road with that sort of traffic and the truck traffic and other things, it's just a dangerous situation. So we don't intend for this to be a permanent solution or even a long-range solution. But for right now, we're asking that in a mid-range solution is that the town partners with NMACO and partners with East Wake Academy, and that we have an off-duty officer hired. I've talked with Bobby Fitz. He's talked with our auditors. They understand how that needs to be done as far as financially, how all the paperwork needs to be done. That's been worked out, and we're ready to do that. But simply tonight, what I bring to you is a proposal that we partner with those businesses and try to get an off-duty officer out at that location.
Let me add, Tim, that in talking with Mark Noel a while back, when they were talking about closing the Tarboro plant, he said that there would be in the range of 250 trucks a day coming out of NMACO and Numacorp using that road. That's a lot of 18-wheelers running in and out. Is the school better managing the stacking now?
The school is. We've done several things. We've went out there, we've watched the traffic, we've videotaped the traffic, and we have worked with the school to try to do a better job at stacking in their parking lot. We've worked with them. They now require tags that hang on the mirrors of the vehicles in the high school lot, because what was happening, you had parents that were going to the middle school or elementary school, and they were coming through that high school lot and kind of crowding that lot even more than it was to start with. So with these hanging tags, if a vehicle's not allowed in that parking lot, they stop it before it ever gets there. They also don't allow cars to stack in that parking lot early. They have a time set that you pull in the parking lot, you drive around the building, you pick up your passenger, and then you go on around the building up to the stop sign and Industrial Drive, and then you exit. So they have done several things to try to ease that problem. Also with student drivers. The student drivers now have 10 minutes. They get out of school basically 10 minutes earlier than the traffic is released. They have 10 minutes to get out to their cars and get out of that parking lot, or at least get in the queue to get out of the parking lot before all of the parent drivers are allowed on the property. That again has helped to ease that somewhat. But even with all these measures we've taken to ease that traffic and that we've recommended that the school has went with, it's just still simply a capacity issue. And until something long range is done, this is simply a Band-Aid. Maybe this is a little bigger Band-Aid, maybe a Band-Aid with gauze and Neosporin, but it's still not a perfect fix.
How long do you see this having to be done till we get some money?
Yeah, I don't really, we've been, on the temporary solution, we've been doing it for a year now, the on-duty police officer. So I don't really know. I can't give you an honest answer to say how long it would be. I can tell you that I hope that it wouldn't be a situation that would be over a year, 2 years, but I just really honestly can't say that. It is 180 days. The school's in session 180 days. So our proposal is only to have an officer out there. Obviously, the days that school's in session, that officer would be there at peak times, not all day, not for hours on end, but just at the peak time in the afternoon to try to relieve that traffic.
Let me point out, in case everyone's not aware, that is a state road. Going Industrial Drive is not a city street, it's a state road down to where it turns and heads to the east, and I believe it goes maybe 200 feet down, and then it becomes...
Towards the dead end.
Correct. So it makes the turn, goes, I think, 200 feet if it's 100, if it's 300, but it's a short distance. But the road itself is a state road, so whatever happens out there, the state has to be involved in.
Well, as the state or DOT, have they have they been out there doing any kind of surveys or anything? I mean, it is a problem on their road.
It is a problem, the road, Commissioner Beck, and that's a great question because we have approached that. We can't, as the mayor pointed out, being that it's a state road, we can't really do anything with the road. We can't add a lane even if we wanted to. We can't add a traffic light even if we wanted to. Those things have to be approved by DOT and go through their programs and their policies. But we have asked them a couple times to do some things, but they The answers we've got so far is they do not see it as a priority. And the reason why they don't is because the traffic problems are limited to about 45 minutes in the morning to about an hour and 15 minutes in the afternoon. And they have other projects. I know I've talked with some of them. I know that Mark, our planning director, Mark Hetrick, has also talked to them, and we've discussed with them. And so far at this point, they don't see it as a priority because, you know, obviously not that they don't care, but it's they have a prioritization method of where they invest their money at and where the problems are. And maybe with this solution, one of the long-term solutions that we're looking at is getting the school and the other businesses involved in them actually lobbying DOT as well as us to try to help get them involved.
Well, there's a tremendous amount of, I know they do traffic counts, I mean, there's a lot of traffic goes between down Gannon going out to Walmart in that area there.
A lot of traffic on that road. The turn lane that is on Gannon right now that actually turns there at Whitley Street, that turn lane I know was put in by East Wake Academy. When they started building the school over on that side, they put that turn lane in there. I think they paid for that. Yeah. You know, so far we're thinking DOT may get involved, but our approach to that is if the school, if the businesses in that community and the town, all three of us together say, hey, here's a problem, can you help? That we may have, you know, a little more results from DOT, but at this point we've just simply not got that. And I think it's there's a potential that we could get some DOT assistance, but to tell you when or how long, simply would just be a shot in the dark.
Well, I know it took years to get a few we had one or two stoplights in town for years because the DOT didn't think it was necessary. Okay.
I think you're right, that if in cooperation with Namako Nomacorp and the school and the town, you know, we can petition DOT, we may get some action, but it's not going to be immediate because they just don't move fast, period. Commissioner Strickland asked me to ask you to talk a little bit more about morning traffic.
Morning traffic at this point is, there's a traffic situation on Whitley Street, but the traffic really doesn't back up on Industrial because you have students going into school. And the students have until at 8:15, they're considered tardy. So they're being dropped off you have a wider window of time. They're being dropped off from around 20 minutes till 8, all the way till probably 10 after 8. So your student drivers are coming in, especially those that are athletes with sports programs, they're getting there for practices, and then parents come in and drop those kids off. So Industrial Drive has some use in the morning, and there are some trucks in the morning, but it's nothing compared to the afternoon. The traffic that we see the most problem with in the morning is again on Whitley Street. But this year, now that the new middle school is has opened, there's a lot bigger area on the campus for that traffic to queue up. When the middle school was under construction, a lot of that parking lot was unavailable because they had, construction fences up and all of those sorts of things. So the parents couldn't really queue in that parking lot. But that traffic on that side is far better in the morning. In fact, this year, at the start of the school year, I sent an officer out for the first week every morning to look at the traffic and to see if we needed, and the officers would go out and they felt like the traffic was flowing in a decent enough flow that the officer may only be a distraction. Sometimes that happens. If you stand out and you have a police officer and you have blue lights, you get the people who just kind of look at the blue lights and kind of, oh, what's that? And then drive off the road or do whatever. So it can be a distraction. So the officers decided in the morning, the flow of traffic is decent enough that if we leave it alone, it will work itself out. And it pretty much has.
Other questions? Okay, the request is then that we fund 1/3, which our share would be $97.50, including FICA and retirement, if I'm reading this correctly. So,
yes, that's the amount. That's the third of the cost, plus obviously since we've talked to our auditors and we need to run this through our payroll to do everything legally and above board, then the FICA retirement, those sorts of things will have to be paid as well.
Yeah, and that's standard. So, anyway, the request is to approve ordinance 2017-06.
I make a motion that we approve 2017-06.
Second.
Motion made, second, and one other chance for comments or discussion. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. All right, Public Works, Weaver's Pond Greenway Development Agreement.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, we're bringing in front of you a greenway agreement with the town of Zebulon and Weaver's Pond Development Group. The last probably 8 months, we've been working closely with Weaver's Pond Development Group to come to some resolution to development of the greenway. The special use permit 2013-03 talked about greenways being built and developed, but it lacked direction about where these greenways needed to go, what infrastructure needed to be put in, kind of what standard and stuff. As you recall, we only adopted the Greenway Master Plan in 2015, October 2015. So as we were going through and Weaver's Pond were bringing additional plans in for development, staff and the developer were struggling about what are their requirements, where they were needed to be, what standards will they be built to. So we basically have sat down and worked with them over the last 8 months with our attorney in hand, their attorney and their staff, and come up with an agreement that shows where the future development of Greenway will be for the Greenway that they'll build, the Greenways that will be dedicated, and then ultimately whose will be the responsibility for maintenance. Probably the easiest way to walk through this agreement and keep it as short as possible is to follow the map that I got on your screen there. For those in the audience, this is south of Pippin Road is phase 1. The developer will be dedicating all this area that's in green to phase 1. He'll be providing us easements in amount of 6,800 linear feet, 30-foot wide easement for potential development of greenways. There's also a little section here that comes off the sewer outfall that will be just 20 foot. We can only get 20 foot there because of the developer did not own the other adjoining lot. So at this point, the developer will be providing for surveys, final plating, and also $7,800 worth of amenities for this area and for dedication of easement. North of Pippin Road, the developer has already submitted for review by town staff this is Golden Plum to Pippin Road, 1,500 linear feet of greenway that'll be built to town standards and dedicated according to the Greenway Master Plan. There's a small connector piece right in this area, a sidewalk between the houses that allows connections from this side. When we get north of Golden Plum, the developer in future phases will be developing a greenway on the western side of this pond, which will ultimately connect over to this property and connect over to this street through a trailhead. So this will be additional greenway that will be built by the developer. The section on the east side of the pond will be an easement that could be allowed for additional greenway that could be built by the town or the developer, but it's been open for greenways. So basically, and then there's one other short section here the developer ultimately will be putting in to tie to the school park here and all. Ultimately, before we're finished, the developer will be putting in approximately 3,070 linear foot of greenway to the town to be dedicated to the town of Zebulon. Ultimately, there will be almost 8,300 linear feet of greenway easement dedicated, or 1.5 miles. A couple of the things that the developer is providing us, clearly all the easements, he'll pay for all the surveying, all the amenities in phase 1. We have to be dedicating this land. We have a value come up of approximately $21,000. So with an estimated surveying of approximately $10,000 and the amenities of $7,840, which we have on hand, we have a value of them dedicating approximately almost $40,000. And that value is arrived by adjoining properties and 25% of the value for easement acquisition. I think that's it. That's the general gist of this agreement. Would I say this is a perfect agreement? No, I would have liked to seen a little bit more. I think Mr. Futrell would say the same thing. He felt like he gave a little too much, so the old adage is that if somewhere we probably disagree, we're probably in the middle where a good compromise is. Staff is happy with this plan. Our attorney's happy with this plan. From a legal standpoint, he's worked closely with us putting it together. As you can see, this agreement is already been executed by Mr. Glenn Futrell and the We Respond HOA Association. So tonight we come before you just to ask your approval for this agreement. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Question? If not, what's your pleasure?
One question I've got around the pond here on the west side there.
Yes, sir.
Are we gonna have to be putting fences and things of that type up there? or what?
One of the, potentially, when we go into design, one of the things that I liked about this Greenway agreement was that we got a 30-foot easement here. So what's nice about the 30-foot easement, typically a Greenway easement's only 20 feet. But with a 30-foot easement, it gives us an opportunity to have a 10-foot additional area to potentially put in some maybe split rail fence, some landscaping, to create that buffer and separation from the private space to the public space. So that was one of the things we pushed hard for, is getting a little bit wider area to allow us to do that construction in. So we didn't do temporary construction easements, but also potentially put in that buffer there for the residents that are along there. That's something, as we go through the design phase, we'll work closely with those homeowners in coming up with a proper screening method and separation from that private and public space.
Are we gonna be providing, I'm not really clear on what type of buffers and fences and things you're talking. Are we gonna be providing, let's say, gates and access for these people to this, to that,
I don't think right now we're prepared to tell you exactly what we want to do. We want to hear from the residents. We want to hear what they want to see. It could be a fence. It could be a landscaping buffer. At this point in time, we're just not tying our hands to what it could be. We just gave ourselves plenty of room from a construction standpoint to be able to put that buffer in. So as you saw, when some people want trails, some want that exclusion. So we're going to work with the property owners through there to come up with the best overall solution.
Okay. Mr. Strickland asked the question that by virtue of having these easements does not mean that we actually have to build these.
That is correct. In this agreement, we were very clear with the developer that we are going to use our best efforts to put forth a Greenway product, apply for grants and those type of things. And so we're on no obligation to build any of this Greenway. If we do not go forward with this Greenway, we do have to refund the amenities portion of this project that he put forward, $7,800. So we're basically pledging our best efforts to put a Greenway in this area. No timeframes, no constraints.
No, I understand. Well, we'll hold that money in escrow for it.
That's
anyway.
correct.
So, but the thing is, we will still own the easement. Okay. That answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Chris, is any estimation of future maintenance for these greenways been taken into consideration? Do we have any idea what it's going to cost us every year?
No, sir. I think that's one of the things as we get into the design process of potentially building these greenways. Clearly, right now, we believe we can do a lot of it in asphalt. Asphalt clearly takes a lot less maintenance than a boardwalk or something like that. Clearly, there's some wetland areas we'll have to cross, which would be boardwalk, which are a little bit more. But at this point in time, until we decide exactly what we're going to build, where it's going to be built, how much is going to be built, I'm a little hesitant to talk about maintenance and how much. Clearly, there is going to be maintenance that we're ultimately going to be to. Clearly, like the piece here north of Pippin Road, that's in the process of being reviewed now, will be dedicated to us. That's 1,500 linear feet that I anticipate us having to take on maintenance next year.
Right, we'll have to mow it whether we build anything or not.
That is
It's our
correct.
responsibility
Yes,
at that
sir.
point. I know in the charter of the town, it says that adjacent property owners to streets are required to maintain the property all the way to the pavement. But I'm assuming there's nothing in there because greenways were not even
Vision.
in existence at that time. You know,
That's my understanding
more like
too, sir.
nature trails, but in any event, we will have to mow it and weed eat it and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this agreement.
Second.
Motion made, second. Other questions or concerns? Being none, all in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it very
guys.
much. All right, Glenn, I'll start with you tonight. Do you have anything?
I'd just like to thank the planning folks for going out, taking care of some of their nuisance violations. I know it's an effort to do that, but thanks. Looks a lot better, some of the places.
Yeah? Come on, Curtis' voice is gone tonight. You can whisper to me, I'll say. Don? Yeah.
I don't have it, other than thank Chris and the fire department for the
All
great
right.
job that they're doing and for the week coming up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were through.
Anyway,
I didn't mean to butt in on you. I thought you
that's
were
fine.
winding down.
No problem.
All right, Joe?
Yes, sir. Just a few comments to make. First of all, a public service announcement that movie at the park is this Friday, starting at 7:30 or whenever it gets dark. And the movie showing is going to be The Jungle Book. I want to give a little bit more commentary on one of the things that was presented to you tonight, the Weaver's Pond Greenway. Chris briefly went over and mentioned that it took 8 months. It was 8 solid months. And as a manager, it's reassuring that you've got a staff and a management team of Eric Vernon and Chris Ray and Mark Hedrick and even Julie Spriggs. I don't think she's here tonight. But to turn that over to your staff and knowing that they not only have the skills to negotiate something, but also the empathy to hear what someone else's concerns are and then share what your concerns are and then come to an agreement is not only reassuring, but it's very effective. And we saw that effectiveness again in something that was not on your agenda, and that was the dedication of the money that Old Heritage pledged to the North Arundel road widening. So we had presented to you at budget work sessions that there was about $180,000 out there that we weren't sure if we were going to have to draw from the general fund balance or if that would come from Old Heritage. I just want to report to you tonight, because of similar negotiations with the same people, that we were able to secure that funding. So that's more funding that's going to North Arundel. And then the last thing, in the days before and during the weather event that we had last week, I was forwarding updates to you from the National Weather Service. And all I was being, quite literally, was a middleman. Those updates were coming to me from Chief Perry. And they were coming to me from Chief Perry because he's dialed in and he stays up to date, so we can all stay up to date. And so I wanted to afford him the opportunity to explain a little bit about what the ultimate outcome of that event was, but also kind of give you the backstory about when things like this go on, what are the things that they're experiencing and how they're preparing for those events.
Thank you. I wanted to, I think you would all agree that Hurricane Hermine was probably as good as we could get in a hurricane situation. We all got some much needed rain. With a couple of downsides, but they're very few and far between. Just to give you an idea of what happens, and I think that's what Joe's alluding to. I want to give you just a little bit of background, and I won't take just a few minutes, but how we get to the point that we're pushing stuff out to our management team and our staff. Every week, one of our staff, or either at least has the ability to participate in a National Weather Service briefing that happens every Tuesday morning. That occurs, but as weather events start to churn up, the frequency increases. So we start off with a once-a-week briefing that occurs on the sunniest of weeks, and then whether it's a winter event or a hurricane event, that frequency starts to increase. Maybe it's twice a week as it gets closer, and gets up to the point that it's about 4 times a day that the Weather Service is issuing briefings and alertings on what you see. And that's part of what was forwarded to you, is some of those briefings that we receive, and those, sometimes they're just slideshow presentations, but they're updates nonetheless. As things begin to ramp up, because we feel like there's a weather event or something of that nature that's going to affect us, There's a lot of moving parts as well as we begin to engage in conference calls, actual telephone calls with the National Weather Service, as well as Wake County Emergency Management to see what are other towns doing, what are we doing in preparation for the storm. It's very, very helpful to kind of network with our neighboring municipalities. Within our own town government, there's a lot of moving parts as well. Within fire, we're getting ready, we're trying to ramp up with staff, and again, based on the events. You look at Hermine, we were very, very lucky, very, very few incidents related to weather. The police department typically sees more alarms, which they did during Hermine, where their burglar alarms begin to go off. You have the need to check stranded vehicles. They ramp up those efforts to make sure nobody's sitting in a car, they run through some high water, it stalls out, those type activities. Public Works, likewise, preparing for what may happen. A lot of preparation goes on behind the scenes. That's why, personally, I like Hermine, because we did a lot of preparation, but thank goodness we didn't have to use a lot of that. As we begin to go through those, we push out information through social media typically, because we have such a large, through fire, police, public works, parks and rec, planning, we have such a large network through our social media. We can push out, hey, get ready, stuff that's coming, make sure you're prepared to be without power for a certain number of days, or whatever the message is we want to send out. And as the incident gets nearer and nearer, and we find out at least what the best guess of what it's going to do, we're able to decide how we're going to respond. Are we going to, is it something we can handle within our own capabilities, or we're going to have to come together in an emergency operations center type perspective? But all that kind of happens behind the scenes, and we all hope for the best, and we hope to try to be as prepared as we can. We want to make sure we're prepared, whether it be an ice event or hurricane or whatever. But not only that, but that our citizens are prepared, because we need them to be able to be self-sufficient for a certain number of days as well. So we try to push out the outreach side as well as getting prepared internally. Again, Hermine was a good example for us, because we ended up with some much needed rain, a little bit of gusty winds, but that's probably the best case. So hopefully that'll kind of give you some background, and I'll be glad to add any more, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of background on what's going on, even on some of those storms that seem pretty insignificant once we look back and it's all over. So.
Question? Thank you, Chris.
That's all on our end.
Okay, well, appreciate it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We're adjourned.